Kagurabachi has recently released its 60th chapter, and in that chapter we wrapped up the first part of the Swordbearer assassination arc. Over the course of these 60 chapters, we have experienced some outstanding fights, some incredible character development, and one of the best executed plot twists I have seen since Attack on Titan, let's be honest. Kagurabachi really went from being a meme that everybody thought would get axed, to one of the biggest and most exciting mangas releasing right now. So I've decided it's about time I drop this series of videos explaining every arc in Kagurabachi so far, along with pointing out a bunch of small details that you may have missed. Before we get started though, make sure to leave a like on the video and subscribe to the channel if you want to see more Kagurabachi content. Anyway, enough yapping, let's get started by diving right into Kagurabachi's first ever arc. The story begins with a flashback to 3 years before the present day, where we are introduced to our main character Chihiro Rokuhira and his famous swordsmith dad Kunishige Rokuhira. The two of them live in a magically protected and isolated house due to Kunishige being the famous creator of the strongest sorcery weapon in the world, the enchanted blades. These 6 enchanted blades, created by Rokuhira, led them to victory in the great and mysterious Seiti War 15 years prior. Since the war though, the hero has been living a quiet life raising his son Chihiro and teaching him how to become a swordsmith, something that Chihiro definitely does have a genuine interest in pursuing. The very first chapter of Kagurabachi makes it clear that Kunishige is a typical goofy and caring dad, whereas Chihiro is very quiet and very responsible for his age. In fact, let's be honest, he looks after his dad more than his dad looks after him by doing pretty much all of the housework and all that stuff. He even looks after the 3 pet goldfish that his dad randomly brought home one day on his way back from the sword polishers. The red fish apparently attracts good fortune, the black fish wards off evil, and the multicolored fish, I mean, that one's just totally awesome because, like, duh. Now, in that very same chapter, the pair of them get a visit from Kunishige's old sorcerer friend and Seiti War veteran Togo Shiba, who will be filling the strong mentor role for Chihiro in the story so far. And he is also an absolute clown. Like, for real, he is so unserious. The most important part of this chapter though is the emphasis that all the characters put on the word hero. Kunishige says that other people call him a hero all the time, and they definitely do because Shiba literally comes round and tells Chihiro exactly that. But despite that, Kunishige still looks slightly haunted by it. He then makes it very clear that Chihiro should feel no pressure to pursue swordsmanship, because he wants Chihiro to go down his own path and see things from his own perspective, which is a very important and recurring theme in the manga so far, so make sure to look out for it. Unfortunately though, this peaceful life is very short-lived because one day Shiba strolls to their house to find it completely destroyed. A group of sorcerers called the Hishaku, with a flame symbol on their hands, infiltrated the house's defenses and killed Kunishige Rokuhira, and they also stole all 6 enchanted blades. However, they didn't kill Chihiro despite the fact that they knew he was there, which I think is a bit suspect, I'm not gonna lie. I feel like the Hishaku maybe need Chihiro alive for something. But anyway, cradling his dad's dead body, it was then that Chihiro started down his path for revenge and gave himself the mission of living up to his dad's ideals by hunting down and reclaiming all the enchanted blades. The story then cuts to the present day 3 years later, where we see the Yakuza pounding on someone who seemingly spoke out against them. We then see a sorcerer wearing a hat with a flame on his hand, who we are hereby going to refer to as Hatshaku. Hatshaku is here to collect payment from the Yakuza, who basically just pay to have the Hishaku sorcerers backing them, and then preventing them from tearing their organization apart, you know? The sorcerer confronts the hostage and summons a vine-like plant which holds him in place before peacing out by wrapping himself in flames and literally teleporting away. Shortly after, a now 18-year-old Chihiro and his dad's old friend Shiba follow a lead which takes them to the very same Yakuza building. And I mean, if you want to stay hidden from threats, then maybe don't string up dead bodies right outside for everyone to see. Chihiro then very quickly solidifies himself as one of the most absolute badass characters ever, because he goes in there and takes out the entire Yakuza force with his black Batman-inspired trench coat and his secret 7th enchanted blade known as Enten, and this blade is supposedly one that Kunishige gave his life to make. If you need a recap or explanation of the Kagurabachi power system in detail, then I recommend you go and watch my video explaining it, because I am going to be moving forward with the assumption that you understand the basics already. Anyway, Chihiro demonstrates the power of his blade by cutting down a bunch of Yakuza all at once with a big Kuro slash. And this is also where we first get a taste of Hokazono's phenomenal battle artwork. A surviving Yakuza member tells Chihiro about the Hishaku, and Chihiro realizes they are the same group that killed his dad and stole the enchanted blades 3 years ago. Shiba and Chihiro then get a call from Hinao's secret sorcerer cafe, which serves as an information hub for roughly 1,000 freelance sorcerers roaming around Japan. Hinao tells them that a little girl came by earlier to hire a sorcerer to protect her from an evil sorcerer who is hunting her. And this evil sorcerer supposedly has the world's most strongest sword, at least that is according to the little girl. Now this little girl is actually Char, a very bubbly and happy character who holds a great deal of importance both to Chihiro and to the story moving forward. She is also just the best, like look at how excited and hyperactive and completely ridiculous she is. How can she not be one of your favorite characters? She's just crazy, I love it. Char does not say anything in response to Shiba's questions, so he writes her off as a waffler. But fortunately, Chihiro is very good at looking after people thanks to all his experience looking after his dad. So he offers to take Char to lunch and have a little chat. Char jumps at this opportunity, but still doesn't disclose much information at all. At least that is until she mentions the word cloud. And this suddenly makes Chihiro a lot more interested in her story. At the same time though, a tall man walks in and sits at the table behind Chihiro, but doesn't order anything. Now Chihiro has a very cool, calm, and frankly awesome expression of knowing as the man behind them causes a scene and then confronts Char as being the one he is looking for. Because obviously this dude who walked in and didn't order anything is a bad guy, you know, it's pretty obvious. The man then uses his creation sorcery to create bombs that blast Chihiro onto the street and then seizes Char. Chihiro tanks that shit though and moves to strike as Shiba uses his super fast teleporting ability to get Char away from that guy and back to the car. The bomb sorcerer locks in because he realizes he is facing the secret 7th enchanted blade, but Chihiro actually absorbs the impact of his explosions with an ability called Arca, and he then unleashes the same explosion back in the dude's face. Chihiro then takes Char back to Hinao's cafe as Shiba interrogates the bomb sorcerer. And this is where we get a glimpse of what Shiba is all about, because he crushes the dude's foot and all of the concrete around him with literally just the tip of his toes. Shiba then calls Chihiro and informs him that the main villain for their first ever arc and the man in possession of the enchanted blade known as Cloud Gouger is the infamous weapons dealer called Genichi Sojo. Sojo used his influence to put a hit out on Chihiro since he will be with Char, meaning that all of the freelance civilian sorcerers started hunting them down. When stopped in the road by a sludge puppet summoning sorcerer, Chihiro remains calm and collected yet again by casually grabbing Char and fleeing, cutting down as many puppets as he can. The sorcerer then starts yapping about their experience in the war 18 years ago, and we are given the only panel in the whole manga showing us what the Seiti War looked like. At least it's the only panel for now. Now, real quick, I ask you to please zoom into the top left of this panel and just take a look at the black specks floating in the air. They look a lot like feathers to me, I'm just saying. But that's just a nice little detail for you, not really important right now. Anyway, a new sorcerer pulls up and makes Chihiro hallucinate the trauma of losing his dad. Meanwhile, the two sorcerers talk about how Char is from the Kiyonagi clan who was wiped out after the war, all because of a myth that eating their flesh grants immortality. Which, like, come on, imagine people start hunting your whole family down because of a stupid rumor. That's so dumb, but I also kind of love it. It's a great story for Char, I don't know. Now, this does definitely sound a bit far-fetched, and the sorcerers seem to think so too. But when they damage her leg, it immediately heals, confirming that the clan do have a form of healing abilities. Unfortunately for these guys though, Chihiro's trauma is what drives him. So all these hallucinations really did was make him lock in even harder and harness that main character level energy. He then uses N10's physical enhancement ability called Nishiki and shreds through absolutely everything he can reach, including the main body of the puppet sorcerer. Unfortunately, two more sorcerers pull up, but Chihiro seems to be in luck because another one of Shiba and Kunishige's old sorcerer friends pulls up to clean up that fodder. That is right, Azami is finally here, and he is an immensely strong sorcerer and a high-ranking Kamanabi member. In fact, he's so strong that he's pretty much comparable to Shiba, although we haven't really got any proper feats from either of them so far, so we do just gonna have to go off statements. Anyway, the Kamanabi is an official sorcerer organization that was formed in order to preserve the country and prevent it from falling into chaos once again. So, being a high-ranking officer and a war veteran who can dispatch these sorcerers without even using his innate sorcery means that he is definitely the real deal. And just like with Shiba, he's a complete clown. We then regroup with Shiba at Hinao's, and this is where we learn that Shiba actually used to be Kamanabi, but quit shortly after the war. We also learn that not all the Kamanabi are aware of Chihiro's existence as Kunishige's son, and practically none of them know about Chihiro's secret 7th enchanted blade. Shiba would like to keep it this way because because it would definitely cause some conflict. But fortunately, Azami is willing to overlook their plans just now and not report them or bring them in. In fact, he is actually willing to put himself at risk by being an informant of sorts, which I've got to admit I think is kinda sus. Like, he might be a red herring here. I think he could be a double agent or some shit, I don't know. I really hope he isn't though, because he really is very cool and I just want to see more of him. And just like with Shiba, we have seen hints but still don't really know what their true sorcery is yet. Meanwhile, the villain for this arc, Genichi Sojo, decides to dish out some punishment to the bomb sorcerer who sold him out to Shiba. Sojo then makes his way to Hinao's cafe where he casually wanders in on the main character Chihiro, and then they instinctively clash their enchanted blades, and Sojo then shows off Cloud Gouger's lightning ability called Mei. They begin their first ever duel in the series and make their way onto the roof before Sojo then demonstrates Cloud Gouger's ice abilities for the first time. The fight then moves to the street below and Sojo unleashes a massive Mei blast that would have torn the entire street apart if Chihiro didn't use his Arca ability to become a lightning rod and literally absorb the blast. He used Arca to absorb the lightning earlier in the fight and then discharged it later to draw in Sojo's blast. But that means that he both reacted to and tanked a bolt of lightning, which is crazy impressive. As it so happens, today is the day that the Seiti War actually ended 18 years ago, and Kunishige is celebrated as a hero around the country. And with that information, we start to realize both the Hishaku's and Sojo's motivations and plans. Sojo is basically a massive Kunishige fanboy who has done lots of research and concluded that he understands Kunishige better than anybody. And he also concludes that Kunishige is not a hero, rather a man who created these blades for the sole purpose of slaughter. As Kunishige's son, Chihiro completely rejects this interpretation at first. But the entire point of this is to emphasize that theme of interpretation and having your own perspective on things. At this point in time though, it is a clash of ideologies that Chihiro gets too invested in to notice that Char has been kidnapped from right under his nose. Chihiro uses Nishiki to catch up to the car and then Sojo fires a lightning blast to stop him. However, the Kamanabi's newly formed anti-Cloud Gouger squad intercept it with some earthbending. Sojo then turns his attention to the anti-Cloud Gouger squad and reckons that he can actually take all 5 of them on even though Mei is on a 20-second cooldown. He chooses to use Cloud Gouger's water to cover up his escape though, because he realized that Azami and Shiba were there, who apparently would be a problem for him, even though he has an enchanted blade. Meanwhile, Chihiro catches up to the car without a hitch but realizes that he got baited by Char's severed leg. Chihiro failed, but instead of crying about it, he decided to lock the f*** in. But that lightning strike really did take its toll, so bam, just like that he wakes up in a hospital 5 days later. And it's at the hospital that he officially meets the 6 members of the anti-Cloud Gouger Kamanabi squad, led by a dude named Ikuto. Since Chihiro wants to keep his and Enten's existence hidden from the Kamanabi for now, they come to an informal agreement where the squad will draw out and defeat Sojo as Chihiro infiltrates his base and rescues Char. Chihiro is in pretty bad shape and his arm is real messed up though, so it won't be an easy job at all. Chihiro thinks back to a time that his dad was explaining he needs to learn to be more flexible and that the limitations of Datanseki can completely change based on the blade's holder. For context, Datanseki is the magical ore used to enhance spirit energy to an insane degree, and Kunishige is supposedly the only person capable of actually harnessing it, and hence that's how he made the enchanted blades. Normally, if you were touched that as a sorcerer, you just die. Chihiro then deepens his connection to the blade and compensates for his injuries by filling a room of guards with 20 tiny black fish that throw loads of mini Kuro slashes, which takes the same amount of spirit energy as one big slash. It basically functions like Malevolent Shrine and cuts through anything in its path just like butter. Unfortunately though, Sojo deepened his understanding and connection to Cloud Gouger too. Now Chihiro actually helped the squad predict Sojo's moves and plan around them. Firstly, one of the squad members, Shiyumi Harima, used their earthbending to float a load of massive platforms into the air so that they could avoid collateral damage. Sojo then avoided the risk of putting Mei on a 10 to 20 second cooldown timer by spreading around loads of water and electrifying that. The shock is a lot weaker than a normal Mei, but it did affect everybody there, just as Chihiro had predicted. They then baited Sojo into believing it was safe to use a fully charged Mei, and then Ikuto used his sorcery called Jikai to send a massive repelling shock into the ground which blasted up all of the water so that it would intercept and conduct the lightning strike, hence putting Sojo on another cooldown period. The squad actually successfully injure Sojo and take Cloud Gouger for themselves, but Sojo was not done cooking just yet. Moments before this, Sojo actually learned to cloak himself in Mei's lightning and used the same technique that Chihiro did. He used himself as a lightning rod and drew a lightning blast from Cloud Gouger through two of the squad members and back to himself, just like Kashimo does to Hikari in Jujutsu Kaisen. He then uses his newfound lightning cloaking ability to, quote-unquote, ride the lightning, meaning he is legitimately lightning speed when doing this. Sojo then blitzed past everybody and caught Cloud Gouger in his mouth before straight up destroying everybody else on the battlefield. The only survivors were the newbie with the Maharaga-esque secret weapon and the leader Ikuto, although he lost both his legs and is still unconscious to this day. At the same time that Sojo demolishes the anti-Cloud Gouger forces, Chihiro manages to find and free Char, who naturally starts bawling at the sight of him. We then get a flashback to Char and her mum, who lived alone because Char's dad supposedly ran away after finding out about their healing powers. Although I'm not gonna lie, I do kinda think Char's mum was lying about this. The whole point of this flashback was to explain why Char was so hesitant to talk about Chihiro at first, because sharing the secret of her healing ability puts her at risk. However, it is also to possibly show us that the key to Char's healing is desire. She must have a genuine desire to stop the pain, and that way she can actually heal herself and others. Sojo was trying to use Char's regenerative flesh to try and harness the Dattenseki and surpass his hero Kunoshige Rokuhira, but time and time again his experiments failed. He did, however, manage to create a temporarily stable Dattenseki, which allows the wielder to have an enchanted blade level spirit energy reaction, but it still leads to death after a short amount of time. Perhaps the whole reason that this failed was because Char had no desire to heal or to help create weapons for harming others. After this flashback though, we see her focus very hard on Chihiro's damaged arm, which is miraculously then healed by the time Shiba teleports back to collect her. With Chihiro now in much better condition, he feels ready to take on the final boss that has just arrived at the front gates of the mansion. An injured Genichi Sojo wandered in and the two faced off before engaging in their final battle that lasted an entire 12 seconds. Before we see the battle ensue though, we actually cut to a conversation between Chihiro and Sojo where they look to be fully recovered from their injuries and sitting down to eat. The only explanation we have for this conversation is actually a conversation between their souls, which would be as a result of the two enchanted blades clashing, just like what happens with Sukuna between Jogo, Kashimo and Yuji in JJK. The talk itself is about their interpretations of Kunoshige Rokuhira, and Sojo also starts fanboying a little bit because he now knows that Chihiro is Kunoshige's son. They actually each accepted each other's interpretations, and this again is heavily linked to the theme of seeing things from your own unique perspective. The blades do not serve one specific purpose. They are created to resonate with the wielder and embody their unique ideology. That is why I don't think Chihiro will ever be able to unlock the true power of Enten until he follows his father's advice and goes down his own path. For Sojo though, his blade has adopted the purpose of slaughtering. This fight between them has always been a clash of ideologies first and foremost. It is because Cloud Gouger is currently wielded with the purpose of slaughtering that Chihiro now must defeat Sojo and reclaim it. And in that 12-second fight, this is exactly what Chihiro does. With Sojo's cloaking, he moves as fast as lightning, but with Nishiki, Chihiro actually is able to keep up, although he did have to completely sacrifice his entire right arm to survive an otherwise lethal blow. And eventually, Chihiro's speed increased beyond that of Sojo's. To ensure victory, Sojo used twice the spirit energy that his body would normally allow, despite the physical repercussions that he would face afterwards. Chihiro went beyond and started using 3 times the spirit energy he could handle, which is what allowed him to surpass Sojo's speed. Sojo could still just about react to him though, so Chihiro actually closed in to strike and then slowed down at the last second to bait out Sojo's reaction. He then proceeded to hit him with the final blow, which cut straight through Cloud Gouger and destroyed it, as well as Sojo himself. Shiba and Char come back, and Sojo then tries to quietly crawl away to the mansion, with his insides literally hanging out of him. Sojo actually makes it to the lab where the Dattenseki is, and he grabs it, believing that the enchanted blades chose him and that he now understands how to harness it. But as Chihiro already knew, Sojo was wrong. And as a reference to that flashback that we've seen in this arc, Chihiro then reminds us that Sojo could never become the next Kunoshige Rokuhira. And with that, Sojo just explodes along with his mansion. The arc then comes comes to its end by showing us a meeting being held between the Kamanabi higher-ups. The anti-Cloud Gouger squad newbie survivor, Kazane Machi, apparently told the Kamanabi about Chihiro and Enten, because after seeing what Sojo did, he believes that the enchanted blades should not be allowed to exist. And I'm not gonna lie, I really don't blame him from thinking that. Like, he just joined this squad and then they all got packed up just like Levi's squad, bro. It's like AOT all over again. I'd definitely be thinking the same thing. Fortunately, he doesn't include the part about Azami being an informant and the fact that he's been harboring Chihiro this whole time. But that doesn't really matter because the higher-ups already suspect Azami and begin an investigation, so he really needs to be careful now. The Kamanabi actually decide that they need to bring Chihiro in and seize possession of both Enten and Cloud Gouger, so they call in their strongest fighter, the only fighter in the Kamanabi who possesses the means to rival an enchanted blade, and her name is Hiyuki Kagari. Anyway, that marks the end of Kagurabachi's first proper arc, and I think once you've read this arc, you realize why Kagurabachi is getting as much attention as it is. Yeah, if you enjoyed this video and want to see more Kagurabachi content like this for other arcs, then be sure to let me know in the comments below. Also, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Feel free to join the Discord and follow me on Twitter, links below. Thank you guys for watching, and I will see you in a bit.